Hey, good evening, Hatfield. Welcome to the April 29th, 2025 meeting of the Hatfield Select Board. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. As usual, I'm going to open the meeting by reading our public participation policy. The Hatfield Select Board welcomes everyone to its meetings and all other public meetings of the town of Hatfield. All regular and special meetings of the boards and committees of the town of Hatfield shall be open to the public and shall conform to the open meeting law. Executive sessions are closed to the public and will be held only as prescribed by the statutes of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is important to recognize that the open meeting law affords the opportunity to listen to the proceedings but not necessarily participate. During meetings of the Select Board, an attempt will be made to find a balance between hearing from members of the community and conducting the required business of the Hatfield Select Board. For the public's information, this meeting is being recorded. So first, we're going to kick off with some announcements, all good stuff. First, I just want to, note that the paving has been happening finally out on 5 and 10. And I know that this week is a little, creating some inconveniences for people who live along there or travel along that route, but it does mean the end is in sight. And I think we're all happy about that. I did not have a chance to go down that road tonight, but my husband did. He said it looked really nice. Did you go out there?
Yes.
So I will be taking that. Well, I don't know if I'll be taking it in the morning. That I think they're working in the morning. But in any case, so to the residents out there, it's, hang on just a little bit longer, and the end is in sight. The town is in receipt of a letter that is really worthy of sharing. This comes from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, and it is extending its congratulations to Tony Lastowski, our water superintendent, for his outstanding performance during 2024. He has been nominated by Mass DEP's Western Regional Office to be recognized at the 2025 Public Water System Awards Program for his performance as a distinguished operator. And I just want to read what they've written here. Anthony Lastowski has been the primary treatment operator of the Hatfield Water Department for the past 18 years, and for the past 4 years has also been the primary distribution operator for the Williamsburg Water Department. Tony is a dedicated leader and has been very proactive in keeping both systems in compliance with Massachusetts drinking water regulations. Above and beyond his normal duties for Hatfield and Williamsburg, Tony has also given his time and effort to other public water systems and has worked closely with Mass DEP, lending his expertise to assist struggling surface water treatment plants with their operating procedures. Tony is a retired lieutenant firefighter and EMT, demonstrating his dedication to helping people in his community and surrounding communities. So that is really just a wonderful letter. Not a surprise to us because we know, really how valuable Tony is here. I know Tony really stays in pretty regular touch with me, which is something I appreciate as a board member, and he just does a fantastic job, and it's nice to see him be recognized that way. So I thought it was important to share that with townspeople. I also want to remind people of there's an open house over at the Old Mill Inn this Saturday from 11 to 2, and this is to it's an introduction to the project or a discussion about the proposed dam removal project. This is all proposed. This is very early stages of discussion. I actually had a resident take me on a long ride all down the farm roads to show me the Mill River and how that meanders, it's quite crooked through town, but meanders through town, and how he's concerned about the effects of removing the dam. So it was really informative, and I appreciated that. So I know this. So this is from, I think I said this already, 11 to 2 at the Old Mill Inn on this Saturday. You do have to RSVP, which reminds me I haven't done that yet, but I will. I plan to go. So it's just an open house. You stop in, right? I don't think people need to feel like they need to be there for the whole 3 hours.
Correct.
But it's just to take maybe a look at maybe some, I don't know, project proposals? I have no idea what, they can't even be at that stage yet.
No, they have a presentation with kind of an introduction to the project, but they're very early stages for anything concerning engineering or anything else like that.
I think it's really important for residents to weigh in on how they feel about this, particularly, you know, our farmers who are using some of the water that's backed up behind that for irrigation purposes. And so people should really try to make the effort to go, particularly if they feel really strongly about it. So as I said, I'm going to go. Are you going to stop in?
Well, I'd just like to remind residents that the town does not own the dam.
Right.
And that's the issue. It's the owners on each side of the dam who own the dam. So I think that's important to let the residents realize. And also, hopefully you can show up to express your opinion or find out why they're doing what they're doing or proposing what they're doing. That's all I just wanted to say. And I also want to say congratulations to Tony on his prestigious award. That's an impressive award for Tony to receive for the Mass Water Commission. And the last item is just keep on your calendars. End of May is Memorial Day activities. There'll be more information coming out afterwards. So I know it always comes fast, it seems. And also town meeting, reminding residents, it's extremely important you attend town meeting. There's some real big issues that the town has to decide. So again, it's not, we just present to the town the issues, and you, the town taxpayers, make the decisions. That's all I just wanted to say.
Excellent point. So that's May 13th, and then town elections are May 20th. Excellent point too about the dam. The town doesn't own the dam, but certainly the town has an interest in participating in what happens out there. Okay, that was all I had for announcements. You didn't have anything?
So I just want to say that we've received some final materials from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, who were so helpful in putting together the comprehensive plan. They had some extra budget at the end for both printing copies of the plan, which we have, some bound copies that look very good that we'll be distributing to department heads, I believe to select board members, so we'll hand those out. Those will live in offices, so if residents want to come in and take a look at them, they'll go to the library as well, some other places, so that it's a document that should be easily accessible. And then it's a document that we want to be living as well. We want to find reminders of of what's in this plan and find ways to implement on it. So in that spirit, we still are looking for one more person, open at-large seat on the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. And that committee will start meeting after town meeting. We'll get in touch with folks and start putting those meetings together. So if you're interested, you can apply through the town clerk's office. But we have an empty position on that implementation committee. It's really important for putting our efforts together to make sure that plan doesn't just sit on a shelf, but is actually out there and living in the public. And then the other reminder that we'll have of that plan is a really cool poster that was put together by Pioneer Valley Planning Commission using the notes that were put together at one of the listening sessions. And that poster, select board can decide where we want it to go, but there will probably be room for it downstairs in the meeting room or somewhere else in town hall. We'd like it to be somewhere to remind us of what some of the goals are from that plan. So if John will allow me to, I'll take off my microphone real quick, hold up that poster and show it to folks, and then sit back down and put on the microphone again.
Sounds great. That looks really nice. Very nice. Very nicely done. It should be somewhere where we can see it a lot. It's a good reminder of the work that's ahead. That looks really nice. Thank you. We should thank them. They put that together. Okay, so that seems like that's it for announcements. Is anybody here for public forum? No, they have a hearing.
Okay, sorry. So I can speak. So Christy Boudreau, Main Street, and here as school committee chair. And I just want to extend our deeply felt appreciation to see the topic of increasing the insurance contribution on your agenda this evening. I don't think it's any surprise to you all that we have had a lot of challenges in hiring with the compensation package we can offer in the school department. I don't think it's just our department, but our insurance contribution is a little behind our neighbors. This year, we had some incredibly productive and collegial negotiations with the teachers and educational support professional unions. They came in with really reasonable requests for their cost of living adjustments. And we reached an agreement with them for a 2.7% COLA a week before the new insurance rates came out, which, as you know, were particularly high, surprisingly so. When we sat down to do the math on that, a huge portion of our staff would actually have no increase at all. That 2.7% would be completely eaten up by just the insurance increase. And so we sat down to look at what could we do from a school department, school budget perspective. What would that cost if we needed to make an adjustment? Because truly we're concerned about losing the staff we have and having difficulty replacing any opening as we go forward. And as we looked at that and we ran the numbers, for us to adjust it, it would have to be completely across the board. We would have to adjust every salary, whether they took Hatfield's insurance or not, whether they were on an individual plan or a family plan. And to take sort of a median road, it would cost the school budget another $120,000 in taxpayer dollars. And we reached out to ask and try to better understand what the cost might look like if town could adjust on that side. And it just is likely a much more affordable proposition, because when town adjusts it, it adjusts just for the people who are taking the insurance and just at the rate that they are also contributing. And so it's very efficient. And the difference is like 120,000 compared to about 75,000 approximately, I think. And that would speak to every town employee, not just teachers and paraprofessionals. It is a magnitude of difference. It may only be 5%, but that 5% is meaningful to our staff. The difference between someone being able, particularly looking at single parents who are on family plans, where this insurance increase would have been well more than 100% of their COLA, this makes the difference whether we keep our staff or not. And we have a great staff. We give a lot of value back in education, and this would allow us to continue that. So I just want to be, on behalf of the school committee, advocate for passing this. I appreciate that it's not an insignificant ask. I know budgets are tight, and I know we budget too. It's hard, and there are a lot of choices to make. This one just feels like one that would be very worthwhile. So I just wanted to be here tonight to say I appreciate the challenge of it, and also the cost effectiveness of doing it through the select board's tools and knobs, and versus if we have to address it to stay competitive. Thank you for your time.
Christy. Okay. So the first item is our consent agenda. I would just like a little more time to review the April 2nd one, if that's okay. So I would prefer to not take that one up, but I'm fine with the other one, if that's okay with you two.
That's fine.
So I'll take a motion then on
A motion to approve minutes for April 8th, 2025.
Second.
motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, finally, posted business, topic 1. We are joined tonight by Fishtales. Carrie and Richard, we would like you to come up to the mic. KF Fishtales, Inc., doing business as Fishtales Bar and Grill, has submitted a motion to, an application to change their hours from Sundays beginning at 12 noon, going to 1 a.m., to Sundays starting at 8 a.m. and going to 1 a.m. That's a long day, Carrie. That is a
That
long
was
day.
changed.
The 8 a.m. is a misprint.
Oh, okay.
Or
I thought I'm sorry.
misunderstanding. Yeah,
There's
it's
been a
10.
change.
Yes.
It is 10. You're right. I'm sorry. It was only changed.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was changed in one place on the agenda, not the other. So 10 a.m. to 1 a.m., still a long day.
Yes.
Yeah.
For you, Carrie. And so did you want to explain a little bit about this?
So we're looking to start some sort of craft fair, farmers markets on Sundays through like the second week of August to like Columbus Day weekend. And I want to have breakfast and, open up some more opportunities there. And then we also have like the occasional holiday where I'd like the opportunity to maybe open a little earlier. Just trying to grow a little bit, but I want to just make sure that we do it the right way, so.
And the farmer's market would be inside or on the
No.
It
patio?
will be on the grounds.
On the
Yeah.
patio and then like the green across the way there. Yeah.
We are, we're coordinating it right now. Actually, we have a business lunch on Thursday
Mhm.
to go over a whole lot of stuff. And if we can get this up and kicking, hopefully by mid-August,
Yeah,
that's what we're shooting for.
So kind of like a brunch offering.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on Sundays.
And there's other events also that, so I work as a coordinator with her and, there could be events on Sunday if we're not having the farmer's market, also baby showers,
All those
family breakfast.
different little things
Class
that come up
reunions,
and,
yeah.
Do a little bit better in the business.
yeah.
So,
Okay, I just asked those questions so people at home knew what you were up to. But I don't have any other
I mean,
questions.
I talked to the police chief, he has no problems, has not had any problems with fishtails. I did some other research, and there's other places that have Sundays at 10 o'clock for mimosas or whatever, and I don't think we've had a problem with fishtails, and I think it's a great idea, and I'm willing to help businesses in town any way I can, so I'm in favor of this.
I like it. It sounds like a great plan.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
we'll
and
see you on Sundays.
Thank you for doing that.
I'd like to say one more thing. I'd like to thank Karen. Anytime I come in here, Karen, above and beyond, I think her job, and she's always in touch with me with emails, and I think Carrie also agrees, but thank you very much.
Yeah, you've made it all
Karen, for your
very
support.
easy for me, all this.
Don't lose her.
We appreciate Karen very much.
Good.
Thank you. It's nice to have you recognize that. Okay, so I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the change of hours for KF Fishtales Incorporated, DBA Fishtales Bar and Grill from Sundays at 12 p.m. to
10 a.m.
1 a.m. Wrong one.
Sundays at 10 a.m.
Yeah, Sundays at 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. and then holidays 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. Monday through Saturday would be holidays 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. and Sundays 10 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Are we reading that right, Karen? Okay.
I should have thrown this one
Got
out.
it. Okay. I know, we've got different information here.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congrats. Do you
Thank you.
know how long, about when you'll start? Just so people know?
We're aiming for the second week of August.
Oh,
So
so
kind of
it'll be a
like
while.
late summer and then into the fall, so we can kind of, get all the fall fun activities too.
It's all to be approved anyway,
Yeah.
so there's a delay.
So that's our goal is,
Okay, so not this summer.
no,
Okay,
this,
We're shooting
we're
for this
shooting for
summer.
this August.
this August. No, I know, but not like,
Oh, right
yeah,
now. Yeah.
June or July. Okay,
Soon as we can.
Soon as we
okay,
can.
excellent, excellent. Well, I know you'll put the word out about it once it's ready, so. Great, thanks for coming in. Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, topic 2 is an update on the DPW director search.
This will kind of function as its part one of the DPW director conversation, because we'll also talk later about appointments to the search committee. And we'll have that committee screen our resumes. I do want to say that right now, there are not an extended number of resumes to review. We have a few applications that are in, but we don't have that many. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that for now. It's been 2.5 weeks since it was posted. So we were hoping for more at the time. There's still plenty more that could come in. It is posted on our website. It's posted on the Mass Municipal Association's listserv of open positions. And we posted on Facebook, and it's also posted on Indeed.com. So that's what we have at the moment. I could also post through membership with the American Public Works Association. That's not a bad way to get it out there. It costs a little more than the MMA posting, but we would have the money available to us if that's of interest. And then I'm open to other places where you could post as well. I don't think we've used LinkedIn in the past, but that's an option. So if this board has any other suggestions on how else to get it out there. For positions like this in the past, I've also seen towns retain firms to try to help with a search like this. I wouldn't recommend it at this time, but it is an option that's out there as well. So just wanted to discuss.
Well, I like the idea of the public works. I mean, I think it's important to cast a wide net and make sure that we're turning over every stone to attract the most qualified candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be in favor of
Start
that.
with that and then go from there. I'll do the LinkedIn too. 'cause
Yeah,
why not?
LinkedIn is probably a great idea.
Great.
Anything else on that, Ed?
No, I think it's a good idea to try to get as large of a pool of candidates that we possibly can.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Anything else on that? Okay,
No, that's good. Good stuff.
that's good.
That's all I got.
Okay, so topic 3 is the DPW report. So we do have some water abatements that have been, that are here in the packet. We have one, actually, both of them were billing errors. And I know that these are always checked out by our water superintendent and our collector to verify all of this. So I don't have any questions about these. One is for 166 Main Street and one is for 8 Cronin Hill Road.
No, they're both billing errors, so.
Yeah.
And both of those billing errors have been resolved, I will say. So problem is fixed, and this gets the folks back to whole.
Yeah, they're pretty sizable errors.
Yeah.
I can understand why they would want them taken care of. So I'll just take motions on those.
I'll make a motion to approve water abatement of $255.18 and sewer abatement of $550.08, totaling $805.26 for Jason Shea at 166 Main Street, Hatfield, Mass. Due to a billing error.
Second,
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to approve the water abatement in the amount of $1,482.34 for Frederick Strong at 8 Cronin Hill Road, Hatfield, Mass. Due to a billing error.
Second,
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now we're back to the DPW search. And this is to discuss the search committee. So I talked to someone else who said they were going to submit their interest, but it looks like they didn't. And we're looking for how many members?
We have 2 at-large positions available. and
2
we have 4
at-large.
applicants.
There are 4 applicants, okay. Well, so I will just say that the 4 applicants are Jeffrey Pearl from 35 Depot, Julianne O'Connor, from 27 Old Stage, Amy Jones from 70 Dwight Street, and Jeff Zagrodnik from 30 Main Street. After I reviewed these, I think that the 2 that to me have the most qualifications would be Jeff Zagrodnik, Jeffrey Pearl, and then Amy Jones, because I know she has a lot of human resources background, but, you know, the construction background that Jeff have was appealing to me. But definitely Amy Jones, human resources, you know, experience is also worth discussing. I mean, they're all worth discussing, but those were my thoughts, just to weigh in.
Well, Jeff Zagrodnik I like, so, I mean, if we want to discuss that first, whether,
Okay, sure. I agree with the Jeff Zagrodnik. That was one of my first picks.
Yep. Okay, so that seems like it's
That's one.
unanimous.
I gotta pick one more.
And I liked, honestly, geographically speaking, Julianne O'Connor, simply because she's from Old Stage Road, the other side of town.
Which one did you like?
Julianne O'Connor.
Juliana.
I think everybody is pretty good for it. I just thought maybe geographically speaking, having somebody from that end of town would be good.
I guess you know, to me, I would prioritize not necessarily where in town they live, but sort of what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
And in terms of understanding the industry, Jeff Pearl, for me, would rise to the top, with Amy second because of the extensive HR experience. But that's, I'm not sure where you are, Ed, on those.
I know you're waiting for me to say something, okay?
It's okay.
Take your time, Ed.
Flip
It's a big
coin.
decision.
This is hard to do.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the pros and cons. Okay, let's take Jeffrey Pearl. He has background in facilities director. He's got experience as a director of facilities, project superintendent. He did a couple projects that were over $1 million. 3 that he's listed. And as far as director and stuff, he has that knowledge. And then I look at Julianne O'Connor. That was the other one we were discussing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And she does she's a human resource manager.
Mhm.
So she has understanding of HR and personnel. So maybe it's better to bring in somebody with a perspective from the HR side on one thought. I mean, presently on the committee, we have finance, right?
It'll be John Wilkes Jr. will be the finance rep.
Okay. And
then Eric Niels, Deerfield Sewer, but also works with us. Me, and then Jeff
who has a
Zagrodnik.
background in facilities. So we do have somebody that represents facilities. So I'm gonna go with Julianne O'Connor just to balance off the committee.
There is HR, you're right, you make a good point about HR experience, bringing that voice to the table.
Good.
And Julianne is an HR director, so I'm fine with that.
Okay,
So we would need to make a motion to appoint both of those?
let's do it.
Okay. I will make a motion to appoint Jeff Zagrodnik and Julianne O'Connor to the DPW Director Search Committee.
Second.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're almost there. We just have one quick topic. So topic 5 is a proclamation that the Hatfield is a Purple Heart town. And I'm going to turn this over to you, Ed, because This is, I know, something that's very important to you. It's important to all of us, but something I know you're pursuing.
Yes, you want me to read the
Yes, of course.
proclamation? I'd like to make a proclamation for the town, even though you're a better elegant speaker than I. But whereas the town of Hatfield has profound gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served their country as members of the United States Armed Forces, and whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in present use and the first made available to the common soldier, and whereas the Purple Heart is specifically awarded to United States Armed Forces members who have been wounded or killed in combat, and whereas the mission of the Military Order of the Purple Heart is to support combat wounded veterans and their families and to ensure this country continues to value their sacrifices, and whereas the town of Hatfield appreciates the sacrifices of Purple Heart recipients in our community and beyond, and honor their bravery in defending our freedoms, now therefore be it resolved that the Select Board of Hatfield, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim the town of Hatfield a Purple Heart town and encourage the residents of Hatfield to show their appreciation for the sacrifices of Purple Heart recipients.
Very nicely done, Ed. And I just want to, thank you for bringing this forward. You're a wonderful advocate for our veterans and
Actually, it started with John Pease.
really,
John
Okay.
Pease brought this up at a Sons of the American Legion meeting.
oh, nice.
And
Is this the original or is this what's in here? Oh, okay.
so there's a whole process. It's been a
Yeah.
lot of different people that have been involved to make this happen.
Well, I know a lot of other area communities have already done this because you see the signs as you enter. And will we have a sign that says we're a Purple Heart community?
And over the years, since I've been a kid,
Yep.
this town has always had Memorial Day activities and has always honored our veterans. So I think it's a good thing to do.
I think so too. So did you make that motion? Was that officially a motion?
That was my motion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, John Pease. There is some stuff in here to sign. We don't have to vote on these. The pay things, right?
Fire
Okay,
department.
yeah. Yeah, just the fire
So
department.
that would not be
Okay.
a vote.
Thank you. Okay, we are ready for the Finance Committee to come on in.
We're only 5 minutes behind, so we're not doing too bad.
Not too bad here. That's for you. Do we need to take a break to get them set up? No. I got behind in my duties and I have not been signing things as I should, so I'm gonna do that. The remainder of the meeting is for us to meet with the Finance Committee, button up our budget, finalize our town meeting warrant, and also included on the agenda is a discussion on increasing the town's contribution to the health insurance premiums. Can we take those out of order, maybe? I'm assuming that you're here because you want to be here for that discussion. Do you mind discussing that first, or do you want to do the budget first?
I mean, it's pretty.
What will I watch later? If I stay, I won't be able to watch it later.
You mean you don't watch it over and over?
Well, just once.
I just thought since they're here, okay.
Doesn't matter to us. Yeah, we're here for the whole thing.
For the whole thing, okay. So for this initial discussion, then we'll take the agenda just very slightly out of order. There is a proposal before us to, as I mentioned, increase the town's contribution for employee health insurance premiums to 60%. We're currently paying 55% for our town employees, so that includes people at the school and then people like Bob in the fire department, the DPW, COA. Hatfield, compared to other communities, as I understand it, has a lower contribution rate. We've been aware of that. We made a commitment over the last few years to try to incrementally increase that rate. And we did maybe, 2 or 3 years ago, a couple of years ago, we went up. I think that there's a little bit more urgency this year because of the rates that we got from the group insurance trust, Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust. The increase in premiums was significant. And as Christy spoke to, it would mean that some people's raises were just negated. I'd be shocked if there weren't some people who would actually get less money. But
Several.
yeah. And so, then there was some discussion about, at the last meeting, about looking into what it would look like if we did go up to the 60% this year. And so that's setting the table, and I'll let Andrew maybe take over because you actually did the work on these scenarios.
This was put together by Christy.
Oh, by Christy. Okay, I'm sorry. It says Hatfield
focus-
Public Schools
exactly.
right on
This
it.
focuses on the school side, and this mostly gives you the idea of the individual impact in moving up from that 55 to 60 and how the employees would benefit from that. So I think it's important to look at what would happen on the town side. And I do want to add, so not only did you say that it affects school and town employees, there's another group that we need to decide if it affects as well, and that would be retirees. Because right now we pay 55% of retirees' health insurance. We would have the opportunity, the option to add retirees to this 60% increase as well, or you can keep them at the 55%. And that's in your motions tonight. You'll have to decide if you want to do that. If we do 60% for employees, we're not obligated to do retirees at the same time. But I will say the budget impact, at least at this time, for retirees is not as large as you might think it would be. It's about $15,000 a year just on the retiree side from the math we're putting together here. It could create greater future liabilities as well if we move up to the 60%. But again, it's not enough of a deal breaker that I think it makes a lot of sense to exclude retirees. It's about $15,000.
Well, it's a narrow bandwidth, right?
What's that?
It's a fairly narrow band.
That's correct.
Because you get to Medicare.
Right.
So it only applies to
the folks on MedX. It's pretty minimal. The amount of the impact of going up. It's about $8,000 a year for the folks on MedX alone. That's the largest group. So looking at our budget impact, and this is already included in the current budget models. I've included the increase in the model that we have right now, and I'll show you eventually what our budget looks like, and that we do currently have a surplus of about $30,000, which is good. That's where we'd like to be.
Even after adding
Even
this.
after adding this, because we added $65,000 total. Now, the full amount to pay for it would be closer to $80,000, but each year we budget a significant amount of contingency of if people were to join in during the year for the health insurance. And our accountants have asked us about this in the past. They said, we're maybe a little too high in the contingency. It's probably not as much as we need. We've budgeted for 5 singles and 3 families to join the plan. If we move that down to 4 and 2, which is a more likely number and gives us plenty of cushion still, and then increase the budget by $65,000, that puts us in a comfortable place to be able to absorb these extra costs moving from 55 to 60%. So you're looking at about $80,000 more for the budget each year. As I said, $15,000 of that comes from the retirees. The rest would be from employees. While it's a large number, it certainly has a large impact for the individuals. It helps us with our hiring, I would say, and overall is, I think, something that can fit in our current budget.
And it'll help with retention, attraction and retention.
I think there's a good case to be made for both of those.
So question, Andrew, the 65, the 80, whatever $1,000 that total did not include the retirees?
It does include the retirees.
I'm sorry?
It does include the retirees.
Okay, so that number we've been talking about all along did include the retirees?
It did. The number we've talked about from the start included retirees.
Okay.
So we don't need to make any changes based on what we
So our
talked about.
budget, we're going to still be over the levy limit at $32,000.
Under the levy
That's
limit.
what I meant.
Yep, yep.
But
It's hard to, yeah.
but it's an important distinction,
Yeah.
under the levy limit.
Levy limit
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Because being a retiree and one who's going to join MEDEX this summer, and being one of those 40 people who are on this, and the amount of time and effort that these retirees have given to the town over the years, they deserve just as much as the employees do for, as far as the percentage that the town pays for health insurance.
Much small, yeah.
It's a much smaller amount, but just thinking of, I spent 36 years working for this town, so I think I deserve the extra 5%, just like many of the others who are in that category. I'm off the finance committee speaking for myself at this point.
I gotcha. And I mean, I guess I would just speak up on behalf of town employees. I mean, we really make an effort to, make sure that our town employees, are fairly compensated and that the benefit package is competitive with other communities. And, we're lucky to have the employees we have. And I think that given that we can do this within the confines of our budget, and we did make a commitment to really try to start raising this, I'm in favor of it.
I mean, it's hard to imagine that there's many people doing less, because you can't do less than 50%.
Right.
So like
Right.
how many,
Right.
how many people are doing less? So, I don't know. I mean, the state's doing 75 now for newer hires. And like, I feel like you're probably borderline competitive if,
At 60.
at 60. Like that's not outrageous by any stretch.
And it just to remind townspeople that again, I said it earlier, but the premiums are really skyrocketing for our employees because they sort of held the premiums down for a couple of years. I'm not sure why they would do it that way, but then there was a big jump. So it would be I think a burden on our town employees.
Isn't that partly why, and Sean, you have to correct me, but going forward, we don't anticipate that the health insurance rates will jump? I mean, they could, but would they go up another 24%? I mean,
you would really hope not. Like
You
you'd
hope
really
not,
think
but-
not.
and if it doesn't, then that helps pay this 5% next year.
I mean, if it goes up another 25% next year, like that's the sort of annual situation that's going to happen now.
You just deal with it.
It's
right?
going to, it's a bigger issue than just the Hampshire Insurance Trust. That's
Right.
like a big issue.
Right.
Like it's not
Right.
just going to happen there.
And not just for Hatfield.
No, no,
Those rates went up for
for everybody. Yeah.
all
and
communities.
so I think
Okay.
it would be a wider concern at that time. It's not.
I don't have any additional questions. Did you?
Nope, I'm in favor of this.
For you to vote on.
Okay, we need to vote on that.
We don't get to.
I move that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section A,
7A. Section 7A.
Section 7A, the town increase its monthly contribution rate of premium cost of health insurance for active and retired employees to 60%.
Second.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. I think that's a really wise move on behalf of our employees.
And just to clarify, this will take effect, we'll do this for July 1.
July
Sorry,
1.
I don't
Yep.
have that in there, but that's the intent of the board,
Great.
from what I can tell. Good.
Okay, great. Thanks for weighing in.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll backtrack to the budget.
Elementary schools there as well.
So as I said, this is built into the current budget model right now. So that brings us to, as I hinted earlier, a $32,000 surplus below the levy limit. As we've talked about in previous meetings, just this levy limit is built to a 2.5% increase, adding new growth from the past year and any other debt exclusions coming in. This year, we really do see a higher amount of debt than in the past because that debt exclusion that was taken out 2 years ago, those bills are essentially coming due now. So you see a significant increase here from the amount of debt exclusion of over $250,000. Add to that $40,000 in new growth and then $250,000 from the Prop 2.5 increase. And just from a budgeting standpoint, and the impact on that for taxpayers will be, noticeable. That instead of a 2.5% increase in taxes, that does translate more of essentially an 8% increase for the average taxpayer. But this is just built to what would be a balanced budget. So I want to frame the conversation that way because even though what we've presented is a balanced budget, I think it's a fair one and a well-built one that meets the service needs of residents, we do want to be aware that does raise residents' taxes by that amount of around 8% before any overrides or debt exclusions.
Before any new overrides or debt exclusions.
New overrides or debt exclusions,
Right.
thank you.
Inclusive of prior.
And
Of course,
but
past
that is
events,
because the sewer debt exclusion is hitting.
That's $150,000 of that will
Wastewater
hit,
treatment plant.
Yep,
Yep.
wastewater treatment
Right.
plant, other projects that maybe we've had smaller amounts of debt.
Which
that are hitting
also
this year.
explains, if you look at the bottom line, year-to-year percent change in the levy, in the maximum allowable tax levy, last year was 1.4% because your debt exclusion went down.
Right.
So 2 years ago, you used more of the debt exclusion, probably because you were doing design work on the sewer plant.
Right.
And then you went into a phase of you weren't doing anything.
Right.
Really waiting for it to be constructed. And
Right.
now that's happening. So it's going back up again.
The project will be completed in FY26, and that's when we'll have interest payments and principal payments start to come.
Right. That's just the interest, right? We're doing right now.
So since we're talking about that, have you, the board, at some point have to decide, is this going to be a 70-30, 60-40? What is the breakdown of what the users are going to pay and what the taxpayers are going to pay? And that's a decision that will need to be made going forward.
No, I mean, on this topic, I've also been thinking out of the box. There's some towns, what they do is you reserve a space on the capacity and they pay a fee each year because if they have a septic, eventually they probably have the option of tying into the sewer. And some towns, they figure, well, you only have so much capacity. So if a sewer line goes past somebody's house that has septic, they actually have a reserve fee. I don't know whether it's good for this town, but it's just something I've been thinking about for discussion purposes only. Whether you do
So it's more expensive to tie in if a new line goes by? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is if the sewer line goes by your house and you presently are on septic, what you're doing is you're reserving capacity for the future so that if you ever have to tie in, once your septic fails, then capacity at the plant has already been reserved for you.
Do you get refunded if you are never able to tie in?
I mean, a lot of, I assume, this is on the assumption that if you have a septic and it fails, the expense to replace the septic and do all the work is excessive compared to what it will cost to tie in.
I think it presumes you have a sewer line too, not some maybe future, yeah.
Yeah, because there's many
Exactly.
areas in town.
Right,
Yeah,
like,
that, like, we don't,
I mean,
yeah, so.
I'm not sure how many,
For that reserve, Ed?
I don't know, each town has their own little fee setups.
Yeah, and that certainly can be part of the discussion, but I just want to bring it to your attention that you're going to have to decide how in '26 the project will be finalized, and we'll start paying principal and interest, and that's when you as a board are going to have to decide. I mean, certainly we can give input, but as to what percentage the users are going to pay versus what percentage the townspeople are going to pay
of debt exclusion.
of this debt exclusion, right? Did I say it correct?
I guess we got to look at the numbers, what's coming in from existing users, what the expenses are, and what percentage of the plan is actually being used. And, I mean, I do agree that there's got to be decisions 70-30 or something like that, but.
Yeah, and I'm just throwing those numbers out, but you'll ultimately have to decide. But is it fair to tax everybody on some of on the full amount if you'll never have a possibility of using the sewer? And that's what makes it difficult. If this is a water system upgrade where, what are we at, 95% of the town, then it's a different discussion. But it's a discussion on the sewer side, it's a little bit different.
Well, that's going back to that reserve, your spot. That's how some towns help.
Right, but
for
there's a
extensions.
lot of areas in town where there's no line.
What I was going to say, maybe that works in areas where there's like frequent expansion and plans for expansion, but I mean, we really don't have.
We extended a line
We
on
have so
Graves
much
Road,
to
and I don't think anybody tied in.
Into where?
Was that just water? I thought there's sewer by the dump.
No,
I
that's
thought we did a
just
sewer
water.
extension.
No, I think the sewer did this, there was a very tiny extension,
There
but
was
just to the DPW garage.
Just to the DPW.
There was
you're
only a
right,
few
yeah,
houses.
yes, Yep,
But it didn't go further down Straits.
It's like 4 or
No, the
5
water
houses.
went further down Straits, but not the sewer.
But
Yeah.
it went to the DPW.
It went to the DPW.
And everybody there said they wanted to tie in, and
Well, you know what? We've got a lot of things
Yep.
to talk about tonight that are more timely, but that is a good discussion to open. And we'll get there at some point. But we do need to get to the budget and the town meeting warrant.
So the budget that we'll have at town meeting for folks to review will be the department budget. It's typically organized this way, which shows the amount that comes from taxation and from other sources, shows salary and expense. In the past, I think it's also shown what the percent change is. That's a helpful thing to see. So overall, these are the budget tabs. I'm happy to go through them if that would be helpful for this body, but really it's whatever folks would like to do and
I
whatever.
mean, I feel like
Sean
we've gone
thinks.
through these fairly extensively in previous meetings.
Yep.
I just want to note that, we really found a lot of places where cuts could be made. And I think every place you can really get the budget closer to its true number is always a good thing. And I think it allowed us to find some money this year. So I commend you on that and also the finance committee and the department heads who worked on it too.
Yeah, folks were very
Yeah,
willing to
people
look at
were
their
really,
budgets.
It may mean that next year our free cash number may not look as robust, but that's okay.
some people like to refer to free cash as overtaxation. I don't agree with that, but it's one way to look at it. If we get closer to the number that we need from the residents, then
Right.
I think
Right.
they'll appreciate that.
Yep.
Right.
Great. So then if nothing jumps out from here, I don't know if there's anything you want to touch on, Sean?
I mean, I think we've touched on some of it, but I mean, I would say just the highlights. I mean, there's really nothing new in DPW. Actually, it's a slight reduction overall. You know, the schools is a 2.5% increase, which, I mean, I don't know how we would do it for any less, really. No, it's.
I did, I went to the schools and met with Connor this week, and he did say that the choice numbers are looking good too. So
Yeah.
that was good news.
Well, that's good. Because, you know, the spending of the school will increase more than 2.5%, but the town's contribution to it will not. In terms of, I'm just trying to think if there's any other like big ones. I mean, I think we've talked about the big ones, which are retirement assessment and health insurance.
Mhm.
I mean, those are up dramatically. Not as a result of the 5% increase that you just passed, but as a result of conditions in the world.
John, just as a quick note, just DPW ended up being basically stable, level.
Okay, so we had
Went
a
up by-
slight, now it's
Went up, I
level.
think, $20,000 or something, but
Okay.
it's mostly level. It's just, there was one other line item we needed to
Okay.
adjust there, but we're pretty good.
And we did, I think we talked about the overrides. I mean, on the revenue side, it doesn't really show up because it's not appropriated any longer in the traditional fashion, but Chapter 90 money almost doubled. A significant increase, which is, my understanding is that's due to the millionaire's tax that we've passed that funds education and transportation. So we got a lot of money to pave roads, a lot more than we used to.
A lot more than we used to. Could be a lot better. We're going to be grateful for what we got. But what I heard, you know, just completely unofficially, I went down and had testified before the Joint Committee on Transportation in favor of this bill that would increase the funding for Chapter 90 by 100 million, but it also had a provision to do a 5-year commitment. So what I've heard just completely unofficially is that the 5-year commitment is probably not going to happen. But hopefully the extra 100 million is still on the table. I'm actually at the State House tomorrow, and we'll have the opportunity to maybe ask a little bit about that if I get a chance.
So that, you know, that's great. We've added some extra hours here and there. Oop.
I think I unplugged us.
That's all right.
No. No. I don't know.
We're just going to have a little timeout here for a second. Technical difficulty. Chapter 90.
Yeah, Chapter 90. I don't, you know, I think that's our big revenue there. And there's some slight increases in Chapter 70 per pupil stuff that really doesn't do much.
Pretty minuscule.
Pretty much that stuff is all pre-level.
We did okay with our investments too this year, right?
Yeah. That we did do really well last year with investment income. So we have a projection. We came in way over what we've been projecting in the last couple of years, actually. So we'll see what happens. But we were able to project more, probably not up to what we have been coming in at, but we did add a little because we've been coming in. A couple of years ago, we projected like 50,000 and came in at like 250. So,
That helps.
yeah, it's not, that's really low. You don't want to be that below.
It's a volatile time too, so you want to
Yeah.
be a little conservative
Well,
with that.
I mean, I think Andrew came up with a number. We looked at it. I mean, I think it's conservative compared to what we have been bringing in, so. But we didn't go back to 50,000 either, which is like way low compared to what we've been doing.
So while Chief Flaherty's here. So the fire department is in as the current state.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that was at the advice of town council. It basically said, you budget for the current state, and then if the override passes, then we know what the money is going to. It goes to that additional.
Right, it's not like the override we did before, where you had various things were getting the money.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a specific purpose.
You had to show the override budget and the non-override budget. This is much simpler because we show the regular budget, and then if we have the override, we know the money goes to the new programming through fire and ambulance.
And it's really just plugging it into a couple of line items. That's all you're going to do. So it's not. It's salary or expense, basically. So pretty straightforward. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any other questions. We've gone through this over the course of a few meetings with a fine tooth comb. I didn't think there was much that was sort of out there.
Where did we end up with stabilization? What we decided to do?
So that we'll discuss through the free cash allocation because that won't be coming from the budget itself.
Right.
So we can discuss that when we go over the warrant.
The rest of the exciting decisions are.
You're absolutely right. It's the free cash.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that this is pretty solid, so we can spend our time talking about the warrant articles.
It's not, there's not a lot of significant changes. I mean, I think, we've added a little bit to support some additional hours for like planning, like a couple of hours.
Yeah, but
stuff
those are
like that.
pretty small dollar amounts.
Small. That's really it. No major changes.
I would encourage townspeople that want to. Andrew and Sean put a very nice presentation together that's on YouTube about the budget, and it hits all those highlights. So if they're really interested, they should look at that.
And when you watch it and think they got the numbers wrong somewhere, that the updated version is on is on the website now. So.
Oh yeah, we had a little technical. We had technical difficulty. Yeah. We had redone the numbers earlier in the day, and it didn't translate over. But they're very close anyway. I mean,
okay.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's the override, the debt exclusion impacts. We were slightly high. I don't think it really make a difference to anyone.
No.
It's $56 a year or something we were off by.
Oh.
Yeah.
But we corrected it because,
Okay. Well,
accuracy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so that's the budget that will be presented to townspeople at town meeting.
Yep.
Does that budget need to be voted on by finance committee? Is that how it works, or?
Yeah.
We do. We usually vote on it right before, just in case something else.
Great. So that can wait for now.
We have had that happen.
Huh?
We have had that happen.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, there's going to be a Senate budget,
Right.
A House budget.
Well, there is a
House
House
budget's
budget.
in.
The House budget's in.
Right,
The House budget's this week.
right. So, yeah, I guess we won't know.
what the Senate
Well,
version is.
unless I'm sure there's not going to be amendments for local aid, so.
We're
I
gonna
don't
meet,
think
we're
so.
gonna meet before town meeting and
Yeah, right
right before do that, right? Yeah.
We meet we meet at 6:00. the
Right,
night
we
of.
always post ahead of
Yeah.
time in case there's
Right.
anything.
And that's the easiest time to just, for the finance committee,
Yeah.
for us to pass
We
pass
have
the
had
budget.
things come up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but let's not anticipate anything like
No,
that.
no.
But, so we would
could
vote
find
this
something.
at our meeting before,
Yeah.
before town meeting. Okay. So we have lost Ed. He is just stepped out briefly to have a conversation. But I guess we could start on the town meeting warrant. Are you?
Or do you
cool with
want to do the free cash stuff?
Doesn't it kind of come into play as we go through the warrant articles?
Actually, yeah.
So we could kind of do them both at once?
Sure.
I'll put the warrant on this screen for folks who are following at home.
And I know that some of the articles are not necessarily money articles, but we'll run through them just quickly for the benefit of people watching.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you.
They're pretty heavily money, so.
They are,
Won't
yeah.
be a lot of things that don't affect the committee.
Okay,
We're going to have elections this year again?
pardon?
Going to have elections, I assume?
We are going to have elections. Article 1 is to have elections. Article 1 also includes language for the two
exclusion.
questions that would appear. One is a Proposition 2.5 override. That's for the school projects, boilers, roof, and parking lots. And then,
Debt exclusion.
excuse me, that is debt exclusion, excuse me. That one is debt exclusion. And then the Proposition 2.5 override, which would be for an additional $480,200 in real estate and personal property taxes for fire and ambulance. And that is to add a third shift overnight, 2 people, add a third person to the day shift so that the chief does not respond generally to calls during the day. And then there's additional monies for backfill and training and overtime. So that is the number that you landed on.
And housing, temporary housing.
And the temporary housing
And
benefits, it's the whole, everything that it would cost
Yep.
to go 24/7, 2 people, 3 shifts a day, no, 2 people, 2 shifts a day, and 3 people, 1 shift a day.
Did the chief, did you see the summary?
Yes, I did.
Did that capture it? I just want to make sure it was.
Good, and we'll touch upon that later in the
Touch
warrant
upon
as
it
well.
later, but
But this
that's,
is the election section.
right, so that sets the election.
Yeah.
And a lot of the next ones are sort of housekeeping. Article
We
2
wanna do it.
is to authorize the select board to apply for, accept, and expend without further appropriation any gifts or awards from any private or public source. Article 3 is to authorize the treasurer to enter into compensating balance agreements for fiscal year '26. Article 4 is to authorize the select board to enter into an MOA with Mass DOT under, this is Chapter 90. So this is using the Chapter 90 funds, which are road project funds. Article 5 is the snow and ice appropriation. There was a lot of discussion on this last year. So I think we need to make sure that our, whoever's speaking on behalf of our DPW is prepared to speak to whatever that number is.
Yes, it'll be around 94,000. We'll have an exact number that needs to be covered. And we can highlight what the sources of that deficit are. But yeah, it should be as straightforward as it can be.
Article 6 is to transfer $27,741.80 from free cash to the opioid settlement fund. And this is really just a housekeeping matter, right? It was supposed to be taken from there and wasn't.
That's correct. Those funds closed to free cash when they shouldn't have.
Article 7 is to transfer $1,917.50 from free cash to the Wetlands Protection Fund.
Same as the
Again,
previous one.
housekeeping. Article 8, I mean, I don't have to do all of these. If you want to take turns or pipe in, do you want to do that?
I think you're doing great.
You want me to just keep going?
I can do some of it.
Whatever
Okay.
you want. We need a break, let me know.
Well, we alternate at town meetings, so why don't you take 8 and then we'll go down the line.
All right, Article 8, to see if the town, in accordance, authorize payment of one or more bills of previous fiscal years, which may be legal, and enforceable for appropriate funds, sum or money therefore, to take any actions thereof. So,
Sometimes we have bills from previous fiscal years that
Here's
just,
bills.
There is a bill, right?
Yes, Eversource invoiced us like a long time after the end of the
Switch
fiscal
the-
year. Oh,
yeah.
that's on me. Eversource invoiced us very late, and that needs to be paid still, even if they invoiced us late. So that's from FY '24. It's $1,900.
usually small bills that just, okay, so then I'll go next. Article 9 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 for engineering services to meet the town's obligation under the permitting requirements for the small municipal separate storm sewer systems, MS4.
Yep, so this is a project that will allow us to get caught up on our permitting and reporting from past years in accordance with the EPA's regulations on stormwater management.
Right, because we did have a report that we needed to do that.
There's,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, Article 10 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer, otherwise provide a sum of money to be placed in the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, or take whatever action.
And we'll plan to put in $20,000 for this from free cash. We typically do $10,000 for OPEB, but we missed last year, so we'd like to make up for that. We have the free cash to do it, we believe. So that'd be $20,000 for OPEB.
Someday we'll get there.
We'll get there. I know.
Excellent.
there's progress.
there.
Yeah. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer or otherwise provide the sum of money to be placed in general stabilization account or take any other action relative thereto.
Great, and this isn't a bad time to at least point at the free cash model that we have here. We're recommending, the Finance Committee discussed $100,000 to go to the stabilization fund. Our financial policies ask us to put about 1% of the operating fund, of the operating general fund, into stabilization each year. That would be closer to $160,000, $170,000. For a variety of reasons, as long as we're splitting up our stabilization, our basically reserve funds into free cash and stabilization, we should be in decent shape. So we're recommending $100,000 this year. It would put us on a good trajectory towards meeting the amount that our financial policies ask us to have in reserve and stabilization, while also reserving a good amount for free cash and some other projects. So $100,000 is the plan right now. But that's something that we can discuss once we've seen all of the things on the free cash model.
Thank you. Am I next? Am I Article 12? This is to see if the town will vote to appoint the town treasurer as trustee of the other post-employment benefits OPEB liability trust fund.
And this is something that our financial policies recommended that we do, is we set up this trust fund, but we never named anyone as trustee. If we don't name anyone, it does actually revert to the town treasurer, but I think it's a good step to take to appoint the town treasurer, who is on top of us anyway.
So Article 13 would be to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 54B, which will allow the town trust funds to be invested in accordance with General Law C-203C, the so-called prudent investor rule, as recommended by the town's financial policies, to make available the options required to meet the investment goals of the OPEB trust or take any action thereof. So
Accepting the prudent investor rule allows for additional places where funds can be invested, all of which is in accordance with our financial policies, something we haven't done yet.
14, to see if the town will vote to act on the fiscal year 2026 budget to raise and appropriate or appropriate by transfer from the Cable TV Enterprise Fund, Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, Ambulance Revenue Fund, Ambulance Surplus Fund, School Choice Fund, Cemetery Perpetual Care Interest Fund, Overlay Surplus Fund, Free Cash, Water and Sewer Retained Earnings Fund, Cable TV Retained Earnings Fund, and Bond Premium Fund, and other funds, a sum of money to fund, blurry here, the operation of the town's department and all other necessary and proper expenses, and to defray the charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, to set the salaries of elected officials in accordance with provisions of General Law C-41, Section 108, and to provide reservation or reserve fund for the ensuing year or take other action.
That's the budget.
That's it.
That's the long way of saying that's the budget. Great, thank you, Greg.
Should really handle that towards the end, or have you guys made a decision to?
I think it's been around this area the last couple of years.
I copied and pasted from last year's order, so this is around what it would have been last year.
It was earlier.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm happy to move it wherever
No,
folks feel like.
No, it's fine.
revolving funds next, kind of. I think that's.
There's a certain order to this.
So Article 15
Not
is,
complete
is,
chaos.
sorry. Article 15 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds, a sum of money for personnel to supplement the fire ambulance department's operating budget and costs associated for fiscal year 2026, and to determine whether such appropriation shall be contingent on the passage of a Proposition 2.5 ballot question. So this is the question that would basically trigger the ballot question on an override for the fire department.
Articles,
Would be that $480,000 that would be added onto the taxes.
because and it'd be permanent.
That's
It
correct.
would be permanent, yes.
Okay, Article 16, to see if the town will vote to rescind the following bond authorization projects voted. Sewer Assessment Management Planning Project, Article 15 of May 14th, 2024 Annual Town Meeting. Stormwater Assessment Management Planning Project, Article 16 of May 14th, 2024 Annual Town Meeting. And Drinking Water Assessment Management Project, Article 17 of the May 14th, 2024 Annual Town Meeting. Why do we have to have this?
These were all passed allowing for bond authorizations, and none of them need to be funded using borrowing. So because there's borrowing space that's now being used up by these, we clear that space out by rescinding the bond authorization.
We had alternate funding sources for those.
Yes.
Yes,
There
we
were
had
grants.
significant grants and then
We
in
actually
kind.
planned some of it too. We kind of planned that.
Right.
All of it, I'm not really sure why the bonding was a part of it. All of it was contingent on receiving these large grants from the state, and then meeting it with some transfers from free cash, which we're actually going to do later in the meeting, and then retained earnings, which had already been completed last year. So it's a small town contribution through cash, and then a decent sized one through in-kind services, which is really just our staff time, and then a lot of state grants go into this. Never was there any bonding needed, so we can clear this from the docket. I have this as recommended by the Finance Committee. I'm not sure how that ended up in here.
Well,
So I can clear
I
it.
was going to
might
ask
be-
about,
it
when are
might
you
be
doing
easy.
that?
What?
Are you
We're going to do it at the end.
at the end tonight
Yeah, we'll just do one motion.
to do all your recommendations?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That sounds good.
Oh, next is a chart.
And you could kind of just summarize it. It's just the,
The last line is the one to highlight.
This is the revolving funds.
do you want me to do this
It's
one?
just authorizing the revolving funds.
Well, yeah, I don't understand what you mean, just the last line?
Well, the last line is the amendment. So this,
The timber sales is new.
Yeah,
Everything else is standard.
you guys voted on that a couple of meetings ago.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're leaving this is to see if the town will vote to amend general bylaws of the town by adding a new revolving fund for use by the Department of Public Works.
Yep.
And that would be the watershed management timber sales
Yep.
Authorized by the DPW Director for timber sales, operating expenses for timber harvesting program for $50,000.
Right, this is what Tony came in to talk to us about.
And it pays for the program itself. The revenue is sales.
Article 18 is to see if the town will vote to set the spending limits for revolving funds under General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half for the fiscal year, beginning July 1, obviously. And this just lists our revolving funds and the spending limits allowed.
And for folks following along at home, there's one change in this from the year before, which would bring the tax title revolving fund up to $75,000. That's recommended because we are doing additional work with our tax title attorney now to help clear a bit of a backlog that we have. While we're not anticipating necessarily go up that high, I think it makes sense to have that because they're doing some very good work and should be bringing in some additional funds for us.
And, people may not really know what tax title is. That's if you're really in arrears on your real estate taxes, your property goes into tax title. And then there's, a process for the town to move forward or a process for folks to pay their tax bills. But it is good to stay on top of making sure that we're collecting those amounts, obviously.
Yes.
Article 19, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer or otherwise provide the sum of $27,837 to create the stormwater asset management plan. And this was because last year we didn't fund it, so we have to bring it again.
That's correct. It was structured as that bond authorization, but it didn't include a transfer from anything else. And the best way to fund this would be through a free cash transfer. For my recommendation, that's up, of course, to this board, but if you want to do that. But we can review that. I think very soon we'll be ready to review that free cash model because we'll be through all of the free cash.
Okay. Great.
Let's see, Article 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer or otherwise provide the sum of $42,000 for repair and replacement of 6 fire hydrants or take any other action.
That's pretty
Yeah,
self-explanatory.
that's pretty right there.
Article 21 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer or otherwise provide the sum of $76,200 for the replacement of the Smith Academy carpets. And this project would mean that all of the carpets at Smith Academy will have been replaced. Some are original to the building, 1980.
Article 22, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer, otherwise provide the sum of $140,000 for upgrades of the DPW facility at Elm Court or take any other action. And we had an explanation. I think you made an explanation on the Finance Committee that originally they thought it was going to be a different kind of building, and it changed. This building is, and it makes sense to complete it and get it done.
Yep.
I talked to Garrett today about getting a little bit more information about the sort of the evolution of this project and making sure that he has that information available for town meeting.
Yep, that would be good. But we've gone this far in this project, we might as well complete it.
Article 23, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer or otherwise provide the sum of $85,000 for purchase of a new police cruiser for the Hatfield Police Department.
I think now is a
I'm sorry, that whole page is all free cash.
Right.
Yeah.
All
And I
free
think
cash.
now is a good time to take a look at this spreadsheet, which shows the proposed uses of free cash for this year, if that sounds okay to
That
the
makes
board.
sense.
So let me zoom in on this so that it's readable. How's that look?
Looks good.
I'm just going to get rid of this. Okay. So our free cash certified amount for this year is 1.1 million, 1.108434. And our town's financial policies down here recommend 3 to 5% of the general fund budget be reserved in free cash. If we were to do 3%, and if our general fund budget is approximately 15 million, the reserve target would be around 473, 754. I think, give or take from that would be fine. And maybe that number actually for general fund budget is a little high too, because that might include some things that aren't necessarily from the general fund. But that's the number I took from the recap. So if you go down the list, here are the things that we're planning on using free cash for at the moment. So we have the OPEB reserve transfer, which was mentioned earlier, of $20,000, stabilization fund transfer of $100,000, opioid settlement, which was money that never should have been in free cash, but we're transferring it over, $27,000. Wetlands protection, same thing, $1,900. Previous year's bill, right now it's $1,160. Then we get to the snow and ice transfer. Now that will actually be lower. Let's change that to
It's
94.
94,000, right?
94,000 is the current estimate. The MS4 compliance, which was mentioned earlier, the sewer systems, is 90,000. Stormwater asset management, 27,000. New fire hydrants, 42,000. Smith Academy carpets for 76. Police cruiser, 85. And then Elm Court, 139,500. And that brings us to a total free cash reserve, so free cash remaining of $403,000. That target's more like 473. So if we wanted to make a change of some kind, we could get closer to that reserve target. But I think because these are going to all eligible expenses that are good for the town, a strong case could be made for this scheme for free cash use.
And also there could be some monies in that general fund budget that you really shouldn't calculate that 3 to 5% on.
No, there are probably a few.
Yeah.
Also, for the record, we've never been close to 35%. I mean, just never close, like this.
I mean, I think that's a pretty
This
healthy,
will be
that's
way
very healthy.
Closer than we've ever been.
And that's a good, comfortable spot.
And we would like it to be a healthy number like that because we are in kind of turbulent times. And so it's nice to have a little reserve just in case.
I mean, a huge water main break, there's,
Andrew, we have.
Well, the school, if the school could lose $150,000 of federal money pretty easily, and they would need that.
can I ask, do you know if they have their VOC transportation number? Because I
Yes.
think that came in late, right? Last year, we had to do some adjustments.
Yes, we had to do some adjustments. I don't know why that happened, but we did have to do an adjustment. We used free cash, 130,000-ish. But we have a number from the school.
Okay, so-
It's actually down.
They
Tuition
seem pretty
and,
comfortable with it.
yeah, I think there's fewer students.
I just remember
going.
right before town meeting, I think it was
Yes,
last year, we got
right
a
before
big
town
number.
meeting
Okay.
was big.
I mean, it's one of those things that it's such a small number of students that if 1 or 2 or 3 students decide to do something different than they maybe thought they were going to do, it makes a huge difference in the budget. So, this year, maybe a couple of people decided not to go, so now it's down.
Okay, that's totally off topic of free cash.
No, but we used free cash last year to fix it, so it's.
In the article for the Elm Court building, you have 140.
It did.
And on here, we have 139.5. Do we want to be consistent with those numbers, or do we really care about that?
Consistency is probably good. We can keep the 140, I would think.
I would go with the 140.
It's only $500, but still.
No, it's important to be consistent.
Good point.
Okay, that is a good, comfortable place to be. It's a good use of that money.
So are there any projects here that we feel like we would not like to explore, or are you comfortable with this set of projects and use of the free cash?
I'm comfortable with that.
Right on.
Great. Up to residents. All right, we arrive at Article 24.
Article 24, so this is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate by transfer or otherwise provide a sum of money not to exceed $3,370,000 to replace the boilers and roof of the Hatfield Elementary School and to mill and pave the surface of Billings Way and the parking lots at the Hatfield Elementary School and Smith Academy. And then to determine if this is going to be done by debt exclusion, basically. So this would be on the ballot. So these questions, the question about the fire department and this question would have to pass at town meeting and pass at the vote at the ballot box.
Yep.
Just so people understand that process for how these things are passed.
And it's a 2/3 vote for the debt exclusion at town meeting to place it on the ballot.
Okay, but simple majority
Right.
on the
The
override.
At the
Okay.
ballot.
No, even on town floor,
On
I
town,
mean,
at town meeting.
at town meeting.
And then on the ballot for the debt exclusion, it's a simple majority
doesn't-
at that
It's
point.
all
doesn't
simple.
necessarily make sense.
Right.
There's no reason to apply logic to that.
Right.
Yeah, it's just for the difference that we treat bonding
Right,
and
because it's a
debt.
borrowing essentially.
Yeah, borrowing is treated as something that you can't do very easily.
And Article 25 ties in with Article 24 because Article 24(5) is sort of asking how we can pay for that project. So to see if the town will vote or raise appropriate by transfer, otherwise provide a sum of money for the repair replacement of the boilers, roof, Hatfield Elementary School to determine whether or not raising, appropriating some of all said amount from tax levy by transferring funds from existing accounts or authorizing the treasurer and the approval of the select board. So I mean, that's basically giving permission to go ahead and pay for it if it's all approved.
If it's not approved,
If it's not approved.
if it's not
The
approved,
debt exclusion doesn't go through. This allows us to borrow the money to do those two projects, which are critical projects.
Yeah.
The boilers,
Have to
if
be
they
done.
have to be done this summer, there's no way they're gonna make it through next year. That you could shut down that school in a heartbeat if the boilers are bad. And obviously, we need to protect our asset of however many millions of dollars we spent on that building to keep the roof and keep the water out, because if you get water in there, I don't even want to go into what we could possibly be facing if that's becomes a problem. And right. And the school department spent a lot of their own funds on keeping this thing in as good a shape as they can. So.
And it's quite clear that the state is not going to come up with money anytime soon, so.
Bob?
Bob had a question.
I just had a question on that one. Is that, if 24 fails and it fails at the ballot, is that already included in the current FY 26 budget under that debt exclusion? Because I thought I heard earlier it's not. So we're raising taxes even without a 2.5 passing because we still have to bond or pay for other projects, right? No. Because that was mentioned earlier.
No, you'd have to borrow it
We would borrow.
without a debt exclusion.
Without the, yeah.
So then you have to cut somewhere else to pay for it in the following year.
In the following
Or
year.
get some kind of money from somewhere.
Right.
So it would not have any impact on taxes theoretically. We'd have to figure out how to pay it back. We have lots of borrowing capacity. Our limitation is we don't have the money to pay it back.
And you'll be prepared to explain the differences and the different mechanisms and the different impacts, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
26, to see if the town will vote to General Law C-40, Section 14, and all enabling laws to authorize Select Board to acquire by gift or purchase such temporary construction easements and rights as may be necessary in connection with the Day Pond project as follows. A temporary construction easement of approximately 4,000 square feet at 69 Main Street. And B, a temporary construction easement of approximately 4,250 square feet at 9 Day Avenue, or take any other action.
So these are construction easements that are relatively small lifts for the property owners. We're in negotiations with the property owners now and going over what these would look like with them. They're both supportive of the project overall. Devil's in the details of these things, but we think overall that they'll be supportive, and easements do need to be approved by town meeting vote. So rather than wait for the final easements to be negotiated with them, we think we should vote for this. It gives the town the ability to move forward, and then we'll work with the property owners to make sure that everyone's happy with the terms. But we're hoping that it doesn't require, additional appropriation of any kind for considerations, and it should be relatively straightforward overall, the property owners.
So now we get into our list of community preservation articles. Article 27 is just the general CPA article to see if the town will vote to appropriate and reserve from the community preservation annual revenues the following appropriations and reserves. So appropriations FY 2026 estimated revenues for committee administrative expenses, that's $8,500. And then reserves, the estimated revenue for historic resources reserve is $40,852, as is the estimated revenue for the community housing reserve and the estimated revenue for open space reserve. And then the estimated revenues for budgeted reserve is $277,461.
Okay, Article 28 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from Community Preservation Budgeted Reserve Account upon the recommendation by the CPC a sum of up to $35,000 to restore, rehabilitate the main roadways on the east and west side of the Brad Street Cemetery under the guidance of the Hatfield Cemetery and Historical Commissions. Said funds to be expanded under the direction of the CPC or take any other action thereof. So this is another money to maintain the cemeteries, the roads, and keep things up.
29, to see if the town will appropriate by transfer from the CP Community Preservation Budgeted Reserve Account upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee a sum of up to $14,000 to expand and rehabilitate the main roadway in the Main Street Cemetery under guidance of the Hatfield Cemetery and Historical Commission. Said funds to be expended under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
So Article 30, I'm just going to kind of abbreviate it. It's a lot of the same language because they're all CPA articles. But Article 30 is to appropriate by transfer from the Community Preservation Budgeted Reserve Account $30,000, and that would be to install an irrigation system for Smith Academy Park.
Article 31, I'll summarize also. It's
Want to add something? Okay, sorry.
Article 30, okay. You all set?
Yeah, I thought Andrew needed to say
Okay.
something. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to summarize Article 31. It's to get $91,700 for Day Pond, but I want people to realize that originally the CPC had asked the pond folks to look for any kind of grant or additional money. So they funded the first part of that project, which was the permitting and doing all the studies that were required, and that's been done. And they did not get any grant money. I know Marlene and Brian Nichols looked for grant money, and there was none available. So this is the final piece to get that pond fixed up, which will be from Community Preservation Committee's money.
Excellent summary, Ed. Thank you.
32, see if the town will appropriate by transfer the Community Preservation Historic Resources Reserve Account upon the recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee a sum of $40,000 to restore and rehabilitate the Cutter Farm Museum barn siding and roofing. Such project under the guidance of the Select Board, Hatfield Historic Commission, and Department of Public Works, and said funds to be expended under the direction of the Community Preservation Committee.
Article 33, just to summarize, would be again another community preservation article. This is from the budgeted reserve account, the sum of $48,000 to install for recreational, open space, and historical purposes the new Oliver Smith Park within the Main Street Cemetery.
So I want to make one quick note about 3 of these projects, this one being one of them. This Article 97 protection just creates a protection that's difficult to remove the land from, but sets it apart as recreation open space, essentially. So once that is under Article 97 protection, it's difficult to then develop it or remove it as a park, which is a good thing for the town to have this land set aside as Article
Particularly in
97.
a cemetery. Right.
Cemetery
I can't
and a day
imagine
pond up
another
above
use
and
for that
whatever
land.
else.
Okay.
Sure. Yep.
And Article 34 is $20,000 to restore and rehabilitate the walkways, fencing, and other historical features in the Main Street Cemetery. And that'll be under the guidance of the Hatfield Cemetery Commission, Historical Commission, DPW. So, I mean, that's 20 grand for that.
So Article 35 is very lengthy. Do you want me to read the whole thing? Because it is, I mean, well, that's a
Well, I
lot.
can also read the summary if this would be helpful.
Okay,
that I
why
put
don't you
together.
read the summary?
Great.
Or, yeah, go ahead, you can read it.
All right, so yeah, because it is a long item here. So I put together a quick summary about the construction and post-construction stormwater management bylaw, both about what it does and then how we got here and why we're considering this. And we can discuss all of this. So what does it do? So it creates a new stormwater management permit that must be obtained in order to conduct any construction activity that will disturb or impact at least 1 acre of land. There are numerous exemptions in here of many different kinds, including for maintenance of agricultural land. I don't know why laying ended up in here. Land, public roadways and infrastructure, emergency repairs, and incidental disturbance, among other specific uses. So we can go through that more finely if it helps, but there are a number of exemptions in here that should help with any immediate concerns. It establishes the planning board as the permit granting authority and enforcement entity, except in areas already under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. It allows the planning board to create the specific rules and regulations for obtaining this permit, and it allows the planning board to waive these provisions if it is in the public interest and in select other circumstances. So what this is essentially doing is creating the framework for the rules and regulations that will then need to be further developed and voted on by the planning board. So why are we considering this? The EPA and Massachusetts DEP require a general permit for stormwater discharges from small municipal separate storm sewer systems, MS4. That's the kind of systems that we have for stormwater, and we need to obtain this permit, which as a part of the permit, municipalities are required to have a post-construction stormwater management regulation, typically a bylaw, or if you're a city, an ordinance, that complies with federal standards. The town is currently out of compliance with this regulation, and we've been issued an order for compliance by the EPA, directing the town to remedy this by February 2nd, 2026. So by passing this bylaw, we'll begin the process for the planning board to then pass its own rules and regulations on construction and post-construction stormwater management, which will then be open to considerable public participation and feedback. It has to be posted. They'll discuss this a lot. We'll also get a lot of guidance on this from town council and from engineering consultants that we plan to work with. So this bylaw is the basic framework that begins the path to compliance. And why are we here? We're also here because this bylaw should be a good thing for the town in reducing pollutants that are delivered into our stormwater systems. And that's why it's set up by EPA and DEP in the first place. So what happens if the bylaw is passed? The bylaw will become effective after review by the State Attorney General's office and by the end of the local appeal period, like all other town-passed bylaws. The planning board then begins deliberations on specific rules and regulations for the permit. That's subject to public hearings. The town, as I said, will work with engineering and legal consultants to develop those rules and regulations. We'll work closely with all relevant stakeholders on this. And passing the bylaw now, it helps the town comply with the EPA's order for compliance under Section 309 of the Clean Water Act. If we decide we're not ready to either put this on the warrant or to pass it at town meeting, because this is a big bylaw to pass, it makes sense that people would have some concerns about it. The town would need to make any desired amendments to the bylaw and most likely have a special town meeting so we can try to get this completed by February 2nd, 2026, the deadline given to us by EPA.
What does this mean for residents?
For residents, it doesn't mean anything if they're not planning on undertaking any kind of disturbance to over an acre of land that they own. If they're going about normal farming operations, it also doesn't mean anything because there's considerable exemptions for any of that. If they're
Where are
considering,
the exemptions for that in this?
they are in the bylaw.
That's what I was
Section-
looking for, and I couldn't find them.
Yep. Section 4. Oh. Sorry about that. Section 6,
Exemptions.
letter B, exemptions. Normal maintenance and improvement of land and agricultural use as defined by the Wetlands Protection Act. Removal of native plants. So here are all the exemptions.
Yeah.
I mean, you build a house. Does that, are we?
Bigger than an acre.
If you're
The house itself has to be bigger than the acre, not the disturbance.
the
Disturbances.
disturbance would be bigger,
Bigger
would have to be
than
bigger than an acre.
But that would be huge.
Well, I mean, obviously, we don't have acre-size houses, but
Most people will put up the
Yeah,
the
but
storm
they-
fencing with the stuff to catch in case you get runoff. The black plastic fencing you'll see around different construction sites. That's really what we're talking about here, right,
It's
Andrew?
certainly much more likely to be applicable to, say, a redevelopment or a development of an entire neighborhood, essentially. If you build a new subsection of some kind, a subdivision, that's what we're really talking about.
Or if there's
So
a major road project or something like that, that would have to have those kinds of things.
But a road project is mostly exempted here, I
Is it?
believe.
Even if you did a house, a driveway, a parking spot, like disturbing an entire acre would be
It would be
a
difficult.
lot.
Yeah,
You'd
okay.
really be digging in.
So most likely this applies to larger projects, subdivisions and other things.
Commercial, large commercial.
Commercial. They would need to get that permit.
But
Your average.
that's in all communities. We're just not in compliance right now.
Communities need to be passing
Okay.
this. Yeah. So what is it?
So that was going to be my question, Andrew. Sorry to interrupt. Is this essentially boilerplate that was sent to us from the state for us to pass?
This was heavily adapted from sample legislation from a community that has, I think, similar agricultural needs to ours, and reviewed by town council. Yes. And EPA did send this to us.
I would expect some good questions about this at town meeting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly, like the plan was not to include this in the town meeting this time, but I think there's equal amounts of concern about doing it on this timeline and doing a special town meeting to pass this. So I think if we're not ready, and residents just can't support this at this time, I understand that, and we can move forward with plans for a special town meeting. And if they can feel some trust in the exemptions and everything else in here, and with our planning board and the role that they'll have in developing the specific rules and regulations, I think that would be a good outcome as well. So I think we're in a good space.
Have you
regardless.
talked with the planning board about
Planning
this?
board has seen this. Our building inspector has seen this. No one's raised enough objections that they don't think we should continue at this time. But it's a lot of work to do, and that's why we'll have the consulting help to do it as well.
So this was not put forward by the planning?
Planning board, no, because it's not a zoning bylaw, it's a general bylaw.
So this is essentially being put forward by the selectmen?
Because we're not in compliance.
It would be put forward by the selectmen rather than by the planning board.
Okay. But the planning board, so I'm sorry.
It gives,
Once this is, if this is approved, it then gives them the ability to work on the bylaws necessary or the zoning bylaws necessary.
not necessarily zoning bylaws, just rules and regulations. It would exist as rules and regulations of the planning board. And they would be the permit granting authority. So much like they, give a special permit for a project, that special permit would then probably also have to include, in some cases, this stormwater permit, or stormwater construction permit.
So if somebody is gonna, I have lots of questions about this. Like if you go and, if you've got a bunch of trees to clear, do you have to get that, or are you talking about you cut the trees down and then you can't disturb the soil, but it's got to be greater than 1 acre?
It has to be greater than 1 acre.
So if you had a farmer or somebody in town that was, say, trimming back their field because it was being overgrown, would they have to get a permit to do that?
I think that would most likely fall under this first exemption of normal maintenance and improvement of land and agricultural uses.
Okay.
Or removal of native plants, invasive growth, or
If
other
it's-
vegetation. by
Right.
methods that-
I mean,
if you're
where-
not digging it up, if you're just.
Where it
cutting
becomes
down.
an issue if you cut it down and then dig it up and regrade it. That's where.
And this maintenance of existing landscaping gardens associated with single-family dwelling, that's what touches most residents, I'd imagine. So
Absolutely.
they're pretty exempted from that, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I understand we have to be in compliance. I'm just.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's-
and
it's.
Well, it also doesn't mean you can't do a project. It just means you have to get the stormwater management permit.
Well, a lot of it would fall under conservation though, like I said. A lot
Right,
of it wouldn't fall under the umbrella of the planning board necessarily.
right,
Right, and this says that it would not be the planning board if it's already a conservation reviewed project.
right.
So-
And most projects, I mean, any projects we've done, we most likely, we usually have to go through the Conservation Commission more than we go through the planning
Like
board.
if you're doing that, cutting up at in the wetlands around the reservoir, that would be Conservation Commission, not the planning board.
That's Concom.
Right.
Yes, yep.
And
Yeah.
what this mostly will require is showing they have a plan for stormwater management of some kind. I mean, it will mostly affect really large projects, like the subdivisions or the large
Yes.
commercial properties.
Right.
So that's the intent of it. And, it also is in here, which is great, is that there's an opportunity for the planning board to create a waiver process here too. The planning board may waive strict compliance with any requirement of this bylaw in the case that it's in the public interest or a public safety issue occurs, and if it's consistent with the purpose and intent of this bylaw. So I think that helps with a lot of the
Yeah.
cases on the margins that we're talking about.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it just adds another layer of thing you have to do. Like, okay, I gotta, get a meeting going with the planning board, or maybe I have to hire an engineer or,
Well, that's right, you hate to have it stand in the way of
yeah,
a project, but
yeah.
it's an EPA compliance matter, right? We don't,
Oh, yeah, no, I get it.
Okay on that one?
Yes.
Article 36, I'm just going to go through the purpose. Article 36 deals with accessory dwelling units. And the purpose of this section, it says the purpose of the accessory dwelling unit bylaw is to provide homeowners with a means of obtaining rental income and thereby to enable them to stay more comfortably in their home neighborhood, otherwise be forced to leave. Add inexpensive rental units to the housing market, make housing units available for low and moderate income, protect stability, property values, and encourage compliance. And a lot of it is like fine tuning or tweaking the definitions in that article.
Yeah, I would say that if this looks familiar, that accessory dwelling units is on the agenda, the warrant again, it's because it was last year. In the space of the last year, the state has passed its own language on accessory dwelling units. I'd say we were pretty close to compliance with that, but there are a couple items that do need to be changed. They passed their own definitions. They passed, a number of things that we can just accept, so we don't have to set up our own definitions. The biggest change is that our accessory dwelling unit language that was passed last year restricted ADUs to owner-occupied, and this no longer does. So ADUs do not have to be owner-occupied at this point. And otherwise, this is language that was reviewed very closely by the planning board. They did a good job with this. What it does is it matches the state's requirements while also, I think, keeping very much the intent of the original language regulations that they passed last year.
and it'll be presented in this edited form.
That's correct. So anything that's crossed out is changed from last year. Anything that's underlined and bolded is added. So it's an amendment rather than a new bylaw.
Okay.
So what did you say about owner occupied?
It doesn't, so if I owned a house that I rented out, I could put an ADU on a property I rent out. Doesn't have to be my house.
Main house and the ADU could be renter occupied, whereas in the past, you could only have a renter in the ADU, and the owner had to live in the main house. The principal dwelling, I think they call it.
Huh.
Mhm.
Difficult to
It-
poses some enforcement questions.
Oh God,
I mean, of how you're
it's
going
hard.
to go and determine who's living where exactly, but
Mhm.
other than sit out in front of the house.
Yeah, so a landlord with rental property, say a duplex, could really put an ADU on each side or just one
Oh,
ADU?
my goodness.
You have to be
The
careful.
planning board did cover this, and now I'm forgetting where they landed on it, because it's an excellent question. We have a site plan review. No, that's not it. I think there's a site plan requirement for if you want to add a second ADU. Here we go, second ADU in a residential lot. It requires a special permit, and it can only be.
You're entitled to one,
approved
but
in-
you have to have a permit to have more than one, probably, right?
Yeah, and they have some pretty specific check boxes that you have to check here in order
You
to
could
get
turn the
that second.
garage of a rental unit into an ADU.
It includes a kitchen and a living space.
Yeah, you have to put
Yeah.
all the proper things into that garage.
Yeah.
Right, there's a house in my neighborhood that's a rental, so they could put an ADU on that house.
But that would be so long, it still has to meet the same zoning requirements that
Yes.
in terms of frontage and setbacks and all that.
It's all right here. Yep.
Okay.
Well, what do you mean, like your garage, to turn your garage into an ADU?
Well, I mean, any ADU you put on your property, you still have to maintain, you have to maintain the same, so you can only be so close to the side setback and
Oh,
the
the
rear
setbacks, not the
setbacks.
front, the frontage is the same, but it's the setback.
Well, your frontage would, yeah,
It's not for the ADU, it's for the main.
the frontage would be for the main. but-
Right,
But
but I see what you're saying about being on property lines.
you still have to be on
Right.
property line.
Well, I am certain that the planning board will be prepared to speak to this.
Yes, they put a lot of work into this,
Yes.
and they'll be in good shape.
Okay.
And Article 37 is to, hear any and all reports that have to do with the welfare of the town.
That moves us to topic 8.
Did we, were there any edits that we went through?
So if we want to do the CPA
Here.
ones, then-
I don't
Okay.
think there were edits.
I'm going to print this version because there was a typo or something in the one that you have. There was a note to myself I forgot to remove.
So these I do not sign. They were
Actually,
in the signature.
No, I think, no, Karen made a new version, so I think that's perfect. Yep, you can sign that.
So for the finance committee, I'm going to make a motion that we support Articles 2 through 11 and 14 through, is that 25? 25, as putting down recommended by the finance committee.
2 through 11
Second.
and 13.
And 14 through 25.
So I guess I should add that to this copy, and then you can sign that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's all.
Yeah, it doesn't
It doesn't matter.
really. We've done it the day of before.
Yeah.
So.
There are some people that look for the recommended by finance committee for whatever reason.
We didn't do, so any discussion on any of those articles? We haven't touched the CPA ones yet. we
So
can't-
all the financial articles are recommended by the finance committee.
Except we haven't talked about CPA.
CPA. Okay.
Because that's starts with 27.
So would you prefer?
We really don't have any say on CPA anyway. We
Right.
don't know what they're,
All right, well, hang on, let's vote on this. So any further discussion on any of the motions 2 through 11 or 14 through 25? Those are all the financial ones.
yep.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Would you
Opposed?
prefer that, that the warrant includes the recommended by?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I'll get that done now. And then I'll print a
Um,
copy for the board to sign.
Yeah, the only time we've ever, the only time we necessarily need to get involved in community preservation articles, in my mind, is if they create problematic situations for the town
Right.
going forward,
Right.
or questions for the town going forward,
We've always had questions when they put money to the very nice thing that was put out
Right.
here, and it's maintenance that now the town has.
Mostly
to
because
take care
Community
of.
Preservation Act can't support any maintenance.
Right.
So if it's a thing that needs a lot of maintenance long-term, that's going to fall to the town.
Yeah. But I'm look.
One of the things that we did in capital, when it was the community preservation articles, was that we didn't vote on them because it's not our purview, but we wrote that we supported that they were doing that. I don't know, do we want to?
Well, that would be the question. Do we want to support them or just let it be? I mean, we have a whole committee that reviews it. I'm comfortable with the work they do.
Oh, absolutely, no question.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem supporting Article 27 through 34. I'll make that as a motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Would you be interested in, just in case there's people who are confused, Articles 13 and 12 and 13?
Oh, the OPEB?
Yeah, those are,
That's fine.
those
I have no
are
problem with them.
finance involved. They just don't necessarily involve
Yeah.
appropriations. That's up to
I
you.
mean, it's fine with me. At 12, I think is one way or another, the outcome is the same. So
Yeah.
It's fine.
So you're looking for us to vote on the warrant?
Do we want to vote on that?
Sure. I would make a motion that committee will support Articles 12 and 13 also.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay? Okay, we're good.
And that was all CPC that you recommended?
Yeah, we did CPC and
Great.
12 and 13.
12,
Which is the
perfect.
OPEB.
So it pretty much covers almost everything.
Pretty much.
And I will make a motion that we approve the warrant as, the town meeting warrant as presented.
Second.
Second.
A motion made in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll take a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. I have
Oh,
one other
sorry. No.
question.
Yep.
We're all set on the lease.
Oh,
So the lease is built into the budget.
it's already
I
in
know
the
it's
budget.
And-
budget. I was just thinking, because we had talked about the boom mower and.
Well, we don't,
Oh, yeah, those.
I
did we go
know.
Over those on here?
they're not part of, it's part of the budget.
It's part of the budget.
The lease,
Does it-
lease things are part of the
The
budget.
only thing we took out of the lease, sorry, David, go ahead.
What is decided to use that money for is not, we don't have to vote on it at town meeting. If you vote on the budget for the DPW, there's $230,000 to support the lease program, and then the powers that be will decide what gets purchased.
Right. We took out the fire, the police car
Right.
in order to keep that number
Right.
closer to the same as,
So the water and sewer trucks,
We have done
the,
it before, I think.
Just feels like someone should have oversight over that. And
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we have,
think the DPW director has oversight of that, doesn't
yeah,
he? Because it's in the DPW budget.
we probably have voted on it before that way. I don't know that it's a requirement.
I don't remember voting for it at town meeting.
and
leases?
Yeah.
And I don't remember, well, I guess I just
I-
brought it up in terms of, are
voted
we
these
certain
vehicles at
that
town
these are the items that we want to, because we had help me, we had the COA van was on there, we had the
dump
boom
truck.
mower, the dump truck,
The pickup truck for the DPW.
pickup truck, the two sewer,
Right.
the
Those-
sewer water,
those
they,
are coming out of enterprise.
they'll come out of enterprise. Right.
We've had articles before for leasing on town floor.
I
But was
thought
that
we did.
was that maybe new leases, not within the lease capacity?
Well, these would be new leases.
They're new leases.
Oh,
But they're
oh.
in the lease capacity.
they're already if they're in the lease capacity, then I would think we're okay.
I mean, if you're talking about
I do not.
the fire, we did a lease on the fire truck, right? That was outside of the.
Well, like the
That was
ambulance
outside of
was
the-
a separate
the ambulance
lease
was outside of
5
the-
or 6 years ago, right,
Right.
Bob, when we did it? And that's going to be paid off
This
this
year.
year. This is the last payment.
I'm going to ask town council just to see if it needs to be in there in some way. Thinking of it now, and it is a contract that would last 5 years, and I'd imagine that the
Yeah.
town meeting, the legislative body, would have to be
I think we've done it
the
before.
approval authority for a contract.
Yeah, I think
In
we,
the past, each one has been an article with the funding source
Being the lease.
being the
We
lease.
definitely have had
It's like the
lease.
town has to know what they're spending their money on.
Yeah,
And the ability to approve the purchase.
In order to say no, even if it's in the budget or
Right.
not, they can say, no, we don't want them to get X, Y, Z, because it's cost the residents.
That's, but that's part of the reason we went to a lease is so that,
that's correct.
because we had issues
That's
with it.
Yeah, I don't think each individual item has to be approved. We've done things, we've approved an amount like before. I don't know that each
We can-
individual thing has to be an article.
Probably
I mean,
these,
that's how we used to do it
right,
when we borrowed individually for the item.
right.
And
My
how,
recollection, any lease item has been in the warrant as an item to be funded from the town's operating budget vehicle lease. So the money is there, but the townspeople have to say that, yes, we're agreeing to spend 200 and something thousand dollars.
well, you're doing
To
that,
Andrew's point,
you're
who
doing
then
that.
has the oversight?
But you're doing that.
Doing that when you vote on the budget.
But nobody knows what you're purchasing. Somebody decides
They
they
don't
want to
know,
buy
they don't know,
50.
they don't, if there's money in there for protective gear, they don't know which specific protective gear you're buying.
Right.
Or if the town.
But those are usually all free cash items that are spent.
No, like if there's something, if you have PPE in your budget, okay, in your fire department budget, and, you know, whatever companies there are out there that make that, we're not voting on, the town doesn't vote on what PPE you buy.
I'm just saying, what's been in there in the past has been that they've all been voted on.
And
I mean, you're talking $800,000 items.
We're talking 300,000.
And I think going back 5 years to the last time to this lease, you could look at what was on the warrant. I mean,
But don't we have to approve?
I think we need to
tonight?
add it.
I think it should
I
be.
think if
I
add
think we've
just
had
something
the,
like this.
I mean, I believe that those purchases have been on as, with the funding source as leasing.
What I found in this previous warrant here was to authorize, see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to enter into a 5-year vehicle lease.
That's
And
what,
I think if we add that, then we can add the information on the floor about what the vehicles are and everything else.
Right,
And that will
that's
at
what-
least give us the
I
the
think that's
space
the
to do it.
requirement.
But I can't see, oh, look at this.
Because Daryl's right, we moved away
Yeah,
from this
yeah.
whole thing years ago of voting on each individual.
But I think it's in here too.
item.
We'll vote to raise and appropriate purpose of purchasing new police cruiser. Is that one on the lease? That's not on the lease. That's not on the lease.
Purchase.
That's a purchase.
That's
not
a
on the
straight
lease.
purchase. It's
Okay.
not a lease.
So I think if we add this one here, 5-year vehicles lease, then we should have what we need.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna make
As
some
long
changes
as
to the
we
warrant.
can provide very accurate information about all the vehicles that are going to be in that lease.
Andrew has a list of everything,
Right.
what it's gonna cost on an annual basis, yes.
So where would you like this added? Under capital improvement? I'll put it as the last one in capital improvement,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
here?
Yep.
And then I'll make the changes right now. So,
Okay, so we're gonna have to.
So we could adjourn though while you make those, right?
No, we can't. I mean, we're gonna have to revote.
Your numbers?
Yep.
Your article numbers?
yep,
Okay.
but this won't take too long.
Right.
That, I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it's been done.
Right. Right, and I really just brought it up to make sure we were all comfortable with the 5, with the items we're purchasing through the
So maybe
lease.
some of those ones that I'm remembering were like larger lease vehicles, like the ambulance.
Ambulance was a lease in itself. And we might have had, yeah,
So I have to revote,
Well, I don't
revise.
think you voted on the warrant yet, did you?
I think we did
We
vote
did.
on the warrant.
Did.
We
Shoot.
did vote on the warrant.
So we're changing it, right?
We're changing it, so we'll wait till it's changed and
Okay.
then we'll revote it. We'll vote to
Well,
rescind our first
Can we
vote.
take a 5-minute break while let Andrew do this?
Karen, while we're waiting,
Can we take a break?
yes, we'll take a break. Yeah, but before we take a break, I'll make a motion that we rescind our vote accepting the warrant article in lieu of the changes that are coming.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion?
Oh,
All those in favor?
Aye.
So maybe we will take a short break because there's some paperwork that needs to be done, and then we'll just take a final vote when we come back.
perfect. Great.